It has been ridiculous to find myself the Poet Laureate of the United States. It seems so perfectly alien to the way that I have lived my life, which is really out of the spotlight and pretty much unrecognized in my hometown. That's very comfortable. So being the laureate has meant a kind of public recognition that feels very funny, and expectations that I'll have the answers to things that I don't have the answers to. It's also meant that my poetry's got a gigantic boost in terms of being read widely, which is an immense benefit. And essentially, the job hasn't been as onerous as I had actually thought. In a sense, I didn't choose poetry. I feel, and I blush to say, that I was sort of chosen by poetry. I tried to not choose poetry. I mean, I did struggle with it until I was 30, which is pretty advanced age to understand that one is going to really accept this as a life work. If I didn't have poetry, I would not have access to the most interesting part of my mind, which I can only find my way to it through manipulating language to create poetry. And it doesn't work in essays. It doesn't work in conversation. It doesn't work in any other art form. I would have gone without. I would have lived very similarly, I think, in the sense that I understand myself to be a person who can't stand very much responsibility. I would have lived quietly. I would have ridden my bicycle a lot. Maybe I would have done more woodworking and tile projects. But I would have probably lived very much like me, but just with much less deep satisfaction. Well, pleasure is my motivation in poetry. And this isn't pleasure like fun pleasure necessarily, but it's always the pleasure of the very most compelling game possible with your mind. The best sport, the best competition. It's exciting to write. It's exciting, and it's always a surprise. I never know when I start what will be called up. Words call to other words in the sense of rhyming with each other. Metaphors have an ambition to live. Once they occur in your mind, you think of the ship, or you think of the gate, or the sickle. Whatever you think of, it wants to live. And you also have, or I should say I also have, something that I'm trying to get to, something I'm trying to think about. But now I have sickles and gates and whatnot, and I have words piling into the arena also, rhyming words. So I have all these things going on at once, and it's just extremely engaging. Everything else in the whole world is pushed far to the side. And conventional time is also. When I'm writing, I am genuinely someplace else. It's a very complex pleasure, and it's also a pleasure to know something briefly, as one does in a poem, that one had not known before, to get somewhere. So all of those are deep pleasures, but they shouldn't mask the immediate pleasures of just enjoying a good joke, enjoying how words sound together. If they have any wisdom in them, It's not because I know before I start, but that something in the very machinery of writing, something that I know Joseph Brodsky was talking about when he said that poetry is the great mental accelerator, something in the very nature of manipulating language as actively as one can get the writer to a knowledge that is otherwise entirely unavailable. So that if there is some wisdom, and sometimes I do think there's a little speck of something in there, I have to go revisit it myself. I can't hold on to it. It's just sort of like, you know, when there's a flood, there's a crud line on the sides of walls, you know. Well, if whatever wisdom is attained is sort of the high water mark of mental activity, and then of course my mind sinks back to its quotidian self, and I can only visit that too. I know this is a good idea. Read the masters. Read English and American literature and poetry. Read everything. Read. Poetry comes from the written word. Spoken word too, I guess, but it comes from previous poetry. It comes from reading. And I urge them not to pay too much attention to their peers, and I urge them to not take advice, probably including mine. But it terrifies me that people are so willing, so obedient, so willing to submit themselves to the opinions of others. Why in the world do they think anybody knows what they should be doing? Let's see, I think I will read a poem which I like partially for its epigraph, which is from the great Portuguese poet Fernando Pessoa. And he says, "I was shipwrecked beneath a stormless sky, in a sea shallow enough to stand up in." So this poem's called Shipwreck. "They're laughable when we get there, the ultimate articulations of despair. Trapped in a tub filling with our own tears, strapped to a breadstick mast a mouse could chew down, hopping around the house in paper shackles, wrist and ankle. It's always stagey. Being lost is just one's fancy, some cloth, some paste, the essence of flimsy. Therefore, we double don't know why we don't take off the Crusoe rags, step off the island, bow from the waist, accept your kudos.